the two different main objectives that we mentioned in that class. Okay, and these two objectives were profit maximization and wealth maximization. And what I want to say to begin with is that there was a time when we did not have this concept of market value as easily determinable. Since we didn't have this market value as easily determinable, why was it not easily determinable? Because you go back 6, 7, 8 decades before, there were not many exchanges in the world, in the world, stock exchanges where securities are bought and sold. I am saying that these 7, 8 decades before, because not there were not many exchanges where these securities could be traded, or even wherever these were traded. Although we say Bombay Stock Exchange is one of the oldest stock exchange in the world, but you go back 80 years before, it wasn't the case. And today, when we find that exchanges are there to reflect the value, some interesting information emerges every moment on the stock exchange, which reflect the true situation of the company. And that is why we have started defining the value of the company in terms of theoretically as well as practically, in terms of how these are valued on mature and efficient markets. So this efficient market hypothesis is something that we will talk somewhere to some extent in future classes. But right now we are just using this terminology of efficient market hypothesis. So this efficient market hypothesis ensures that the value of the company as it is reflected on the stock exchange gives a true value of the share of a company. It is in this context that I was discussing that you must understand the nitty-gritty of calculation. So I talked of different terminologies which were related to book value, face value, and market value. Frankly speaking, it is the market value which is most important in today's time, and that is why we are defining wealth in terms of the market value of the securities of the company that we are talking of. And that is why wealth maximization has become the goal of the company while we are looking at the finance function. In fact, for quite some time, there is a new debate going on, but is yet to be settled. And that debate is, and this may be, little bit beyond what we are supposed to be discussing in this discipline, because when you become mature in the subject, you start dealing with the advanced subjects of finance, then you start talking of it. So I am just hinting at it, which is we start talking of the stakeholders value maximization. So the moment you move from the shareholders to stakeholders, that means you are no more looking at only the shareholders, but you are also looking at the other stakeholders. You're looking at the society, you're looking at the employee, you're looking at the owners. And so in that sense, but this concept of stakeholders value is not fully measurable, and so there are issues in this, and the debate is yet to settle. And the corporate sector or the business entities are yet to move on to, maybe they never move on to that, because there are complexities in understanding, and the motive by which the companies are floated are primarily linked with the shareholders, because they are the ones, if they are majority or they are the controlling shareholders, so they are termed as promoters. So in that sense, it is the promoters who are the guiding principles for how a business is run. So it is in this sense we are still on to wealth maximization, and maybe for quite some time we will remain. When I started studying this subject, like I finished my post graduation in 1982. So when we were studying this subject, even at that time, this was the same debate of profit maximization versus wealth maximization. And so we moved on to the idea of wealth maximization even at that time. So already about 4 decades have passed, and then also we were saying, because now wealth maximization is measurable, wealth is measurable in the market value terms. So we are using this terminology. So, and in that sense, it is a superior terminology over profits, because profit is something which, though measurable, but difficult to speculate about future profits, also difficult to really think of a single meaning when we talk of profit. Is it the long term or short term? Is it the immediate? Is it in what sense? Because there are measurement issues, there are also accounting issues involved in that, and therefore the profit measurement can change depending upon the accounting policy that you might be adopting, right? So this is how this debate has been going on, and this debate will remain even for some time to come. Anything you want to say at this stage? You want to ask? You want to add? Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Since nothing is coming forward, so I said that after we debate about this and reach to the point that look, wealth maximization of shareholders is the goal of the finance function, then how do we start looking at various aspects? So I said in the last session that, see, there are two important aspects that we touch upon. One, the conflicting goals of finance function. So we basically say there are, if anybody has studied this topic, can come up with an answer before I say something. But if you are not coming it up, then maybe, I continue. So if somebody wants to say something and interrupt me, I will stop and I'll hear that student. Otherwise, I am continuing with my subject. So when we say conflicting goals of finance function, we say there are three conflicting goals of finance function. Of these three conflicting goals, we say these are profitability, solvency, and liquidity. And there is a direct conflict of these three objectives of finance, right? We say goals because there are multiple. Now, look at the profitability. If you are chasing too much of profitability, that means you want to really invest every penny that you have in your kitty, in the kitty of the company that you're talking about. So if you start investing every penny in the kitty, meaning thereby and also adding to further that not only that you are investing every penny in the kitty, but you're also investing in a manner so that you are expecting higher profits. In the process of doing that, you are actually taking risk. Your business is about risk, but when you are trying to look at too much of maximization, that means you are taking higher risk. So when you are taking higher risk and you are investing every penny in the kitty, then you are sacrificing, rather you are putting at stake two important other goals, which is liquidity on the one hand and solvency on the other hand. Now, supposing you say, since these two other goals are at stake, so I say solvency. So solvency implies that you have your company in a state where it is always able to pay its liabilities. There is nowhere a scenario, and in that case, I would like to add a very important case which has come up today. In fact, it has been there in the news for last few days, but today it has got some extra limelight. Can somebody point out what is the case that I am talking about? Anybody who can say on this? Any news that anybody has read, and from there, one is able to say what is today so important, which is happening. See, look at the case of this company, which is a very important company in the country, but is facing a serious problem. And that company is Vodafone Idea. This company today has declined from its current market price, which was already very low. Like it closed yesterday at about 6 rupees. In fact, 6 rupees 3 paisa on Bombay Stock Exchange and 6 rupee on National Stock Exchange. But today it has declined further, and already a circuit. So there is a circuit breaker which is imposed for the purpose of keeping the trading on the stock market on control. So this particular company had in the morning a lower side circuit breaker at 10%, and it was shifted to 15%, then 20%, and then 25%. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
So if you look at this Bombay Stock Exchange data about Vodafone Idea, it has put the lower price band at 4 rupee 23 paisa, which is 25% lower to the yesterday's closure. So yesterday's closure is there as previous close on the extreme left of the screen, immediately below where Vodafone Idea Limited is written and the current price is written. Immediately below that there is a information about previous close, and then it is talking about at what price it opened, how much high it went, and what low it achieved. And I'm sorry, I'm able to not say about this volatility. I think I'm not able to say, I'm not sure exactly. So I'm not saying it about it. And then it is talking of 52-week high, low. I'm just introducing you to, how practically you connect information. So because the profitability is at stake, because the profitability is in doubt. Why profitability is in doubt? Because solvency is in doubt. The company is a highly indebted company, but it's a very significant company. So maybe, the promoters, even the subscribers to telecom services of Vodafone are probably maybe thinking that maybe, this government may come up with a solution. And if you go back to the history of this particular case, connecting it with the telecom industry, there was a huge debt built up. I shouldn't say debt, huge liability had built up, which was towards the government in terms of a percentage of the revenue that they earn, which they should pay as royalty, because they have taken the spectrum from the government. And there was a Supreme Court ruling also in this case, where Supreme Court had ruled that the royalty has to be worked out on aggregate gross revenue. So when Supreme Court had ruled on aggregate gross revenue, there was also an issue whether this revenue should come only from the telecom services or it's a total revenue. And Supreme Court had ruled that it is a total revenue, whether it is a telecom service or it is a non-telecom service which is offered by that company. And therefore, the liability some of the liability which the companies were not paying because there were computational issues, and some of the liabilities which has got built up because they were not paying. So there is a penalty and interest on the liability which they were not paying to the government for royalty. And now that the ruling has come from Supreme Court that it is not just the aggregate gross revenue from telecom services, it is an aggregate gross revenue from whatever services, that from whatever activities that it is coming from. So it is in this sense, this company is in limelight. Kumar Mangalam Birla yesterday evening had stepped down as the non-executive chairman, and now, of course, Kumar Mangalam Birla remains a promoter group. Besides and I also want to show these two screens as well. If you look at the Vodafone Idea, this Vodafone Idea was founded by Kumar Mangalam Birla on 31st August 2018, and it is also saying that the current stock price is 4 rupee 80 paisa. In fact, I refresh this, so maybe it will give some different price. Let me just see whether it changes. Yes, it is now talking of not 480 but 475, which is slightly higher than 20%, and that means the circuit has been further lowered. Yes, now the circuit is 30% below the previous close. That means the share price can go down up to 4 rupee 23 paisa. All the analysts and investors were expecting that it will not go below 5 rupees a few days before, but then already there is a situation where that it has gone below below 5 rupees, and there is of course an upper circuit, which in today's scenario doesn't seem to be relevant today, at least till now. So that's the kind of volatility that it is facing. And so, there are issues of management which is there, and I'm coming back to, let me also show one more screen in this, which is about the parent company of Vodafone Idea, which is a Vodafone Group, which is a British multinational, which was founded in 1982. Although telecom cellular services were no more in operation in 1982, but that's the year when I completed my post-graduation. But of course, I didn't know about this Vodafone at that time. But I'm just trying to connect with my time frame and the company. So this company is the multinational which is owning, in a way. Owning means having a superior controlling interest in Vodafone Idea. In fact, this multinational has offered to give it away, the entire stakes that they have. They have more than 50% of the stakes, because the total promoter stake is about 72%. And that information is also visible on the stock market. When you look at the stock market data, so there is a information about results. So it is showing you March 2021 results. And it is showing that net profit, in fact, it is a net loss of 7,026 crore rupees. Revenue is 9,530, and net profit is to the tune of, net loss is to the tune of 7,026 rupees. And shareholding pattern, when you look at, so you find promoter have a 72% stake. It is broadly divided into these two groups: Vodafone British multinational, and Aditya, this Kumar Mangalam Birla, which is owning about, I think, 15% share, 15% plus shares, and Vodafone multinational is owning, Vodafone Group PLC, which is a British multinational, is owning about, I think, 53%. So that makes it somewhere close to, if you add it up, 15 plus something and 53 plus something, so that makes it about 69% roughly. And then there are maybe few other stakeholders. So in that sense, the promoters have one of the important part of the promoter shareholding is that if you look at this information, which is there, MCAP full and MCAP FF. Can anybody mention as to what it is? MCAP full and MCAP FF. Market capital full, market capital FF. What is FF? Face value is 10 rupees. And there is other information, like it's saying return on equity is giving it, see, the company is in a very bad shape. But look at the return on equity, it is coming out to be very, very high. Why you can connect it? Because maybe, people are expecting that it has gone down at such a level and it might rise. So if it rises, it will give you a huge profit. 30% it is down. Supposing it rises to the upper circuit, say it rises to 6 rupees 63 paisa, because today is in the current scenario, it cannot rise beyond 6 rupees 63 paisa. So on a investment of 4 rupee 23, I'm just connecting with that data. My focus remains on the conflicting goals. So I'm talking of how solvency and how solvency, liquidity, and profitability are three conflicting goals which a finance manager chases. And we are looking at the information related to profitability through stock market information, right? Although it is showing, if you look at some of the positive indications, look at the results, and on the right side of the results, it is saying that the operating profit of this company of the latest quarter is the highest. It is 45%. But somehow the company's valuation is declining. Company's wealth is declining. Valuation is declining, wealth is declining, because there is a mismatch between these three conflicting goals. The mismatch has to be resolved by creating a balance. So if you are chasing three conflicting goals, profitability, solvency, and liquidity, the art, the expertise of the finance manager. The word, when I use finance manager, it doesn't mean a person at a lower level. It means a whole team which is actually directed by people at very senior level like director finance or vice president finance. Like recently, when yesterday Kumar Mangalam Birla stepped down, they have uh, they have instituted some Mr. Kapania, who is a expert in telecom industry for last 25 years, and Sushil Agarwal, who is a chartered accountant and is a uh, director finance in their group companies. That these two person have been instituted in Vodafone because they still want to see that this company survives. And the question of survival has got to do with chasing these three conflicting goals in an using your expertise of finance. So when you are chasing these conflicting goals, the art lies in balancing. And so as I was explaining, that look, if you chase too much of profitability, the you sacrifice solvency and liquidity. And if you sacrifice solvency and liquidity, if the company becomes insolvent, profitability goal also goes. Now let us look at a case where you say, okay, let's not chase too much of profitability, but let's ensure that it is solvent. Let's ensure that the business entity, the company is solvent. The moment you try to do that, and if you chase that too much, what does that mean? That means you are trying to play too safe. When you are trying to play too safe, so your risk taking is much lower. So if your risk taking is much lower, your profitability will decline. Because unless you do good innovative things, like for example Vodafone and Bharti Airtel and BSNL, these are the four major players in the telecom sector in India today. Of course there is a fifth one also, but nowadays people do not know the name of that company. Can anybody mention about that? Yes. Yes, yeah. Ayush mentions about the name, which is BSNL. So taking these five companies together, they are the ones who cover most of the I would say landscape of telecom sector in India. And uh, these two companies, of course, Bharti Telecom today is a big Indian multinational and is operating in many countries, and it has got fairly good resources in terms of its cash, in terms of its subscriber base, in terms of its management caliber. And therefore that company, in spite of the government ruling, in spite of the Supreme Court ruling, is able to pay out whatever liability has come, and therefore that company remains solvent. That company remains chasing, and in fact these three companies actually enjoyed good opportunity during COVID time, because the entire infrastructure which became more relevant for communication and exercising various functions of the business and other activities and other entities was the IT and telecom infrastructure. So there was a big advantage which all these companies have got. But the important thing which Bharti and Vodafone did not do when Reliance Jio entered in the market, because when Reliance Jio entered in the market, they came up with a very customer oriented, fifth generation oriented, something which is more useful, more user friendly, and in terms of meeting the demands of the current time. And that's why they felt a major stress in terms of competition. And today is the scenario where Vodafone is facing a major difficulty in this. So let me also now say about the third important, which is liquidity. So if you look at the liquidity, liquidity implies, any portion of liquidity implies whatever resources you have, if you do not deploy for profitable activity. So if you do not deploy for profitability activity, that means you are keeping it idle, you are keeping it liquid. So in a way you are able to ensure liquidity as an important goal. Why liquidity is an important goal? Because if you have contingency, and if you do not have contingency, but otherwise you have a demand for resources, demand for cash and liquid resources, and you're not able to plan well, then you find that liquidity acts as a crunch to solvency, liquidity acts as a crunch also to profitability. So too much of liquidity means that you are actually not able to keep your company solvent, and it also means that you are not able to ensure that the company is profitable enough. So if you are not able to do that, that means chasing too much of liquidity would mean that you are sacrificing, in some sense, over a period of time, your solvency and profitability. This is a practice we see in the corporate sector, that corporate sector holds a lot of cash. So these cash holdings you find in the corporate sector is a major component. But if you are not able to use these cash holdings for the business profitable opportunities which emerge, then you find that these cash holdings, which is ensuring liquidity, is not able to ensure profitability and solvency. But if you utilize this cash holdings that you have to whatever good opportunity that comes in the market, uh, to tap the profitability, and also ensuring that your risk is within limit, within your manageable limit, then you find that even solvency is also taken care of. And therefore, I am saying that these three goals are conflicting goals. You chase one too much, you sacrifice the other two. Now, whichever is that one, whether that one is solvency or liquidity or profitability. So, what I have tried to do is I have tried to explain these three terminologies, that is, what is profitability, what is solvency, and what is liquidity. And I have also tried to explain, how these three are conflicting with each other. And as a finance manager, your role is to balance this conflict. You cannot do away with the conflict, but you have to create a balance. So your art, your expertise as a finance manager lies in creating this balance. Now, having said about the main objective of finance function and also about the conflicting goals, then we come to a very important dimension. If you do not have questions, let me also look at the chat window if there is anybody who has raised any question. No. Okay. So we come to major decisions in the finance function. And I would like to draw your attention to those videos that you watched. And if you look at those videos, those, like somebody pointed out, that those videos are primarily on roads or railways or transport infrastructure. Although my objective was not to focus on transport and railways and road infrastructure, my objective was to highlight that there are major investments involved when a company takes up the business. And in that context, I also had taken an example of General Motors. So when I had taken an example of General Motors, which had set up a plant which had started setting up a plant in 1995 for creating a commercial electric vehicle unit, so that the product be ready by 2002, in a 7 years time. And they were anticipating that by 2002, probably petroleum, diesel would become less important, and other sources of energy would become important, and therefore electric vehicle would find a good market. If you look at today's scenario, where Tesla is becoming a top value company in the world, and already there is a demand for electric vehicles, and some of the Indian companies have also started manufacturing electric vehicles. But that wasn't the scenario in 2002. The scenario was very much different. So looking at it from that point of view, if a company takes up any business activity, it's like a huge investment, whether it is a steel plant or it is a cement plant or it is starting a railway. Okay, railway is like a government utility in India, though in many other countries it is also available as a private venture. But let's say you're talking of an airline services, or you're talking of starting a hotel chain, or you're trying to get into, some other business, any business that you get into, there is a huge resources involved to begin that. And therefore, there are two important functions which the finance function involves, which are mobilization of financial resources and utilization of financial resources. And when you're doing this, although there are two more things that I want to talk about in this subject, and I'm just saying about these two things, that is of utilization of finance and mobilization of financial resources. So these are the two important objectives. These are the two important decisions that you take: where to put your money, from where you get the money, from where do you mobilize financial resources, and where do you utilize financial resources. And both these decisions are important finance decisions. I'm emphasizing on the word finance. Why I'm emphasizing on the word finance? Because the moment we say finance decisions, although we will be talking of four important domains in finance decisions: one which is related to utilization of finance, the other which is related to mobilization of finance, and the third, which in a way is a mix of the two. Why in a mix of the two? Although we know it as dividend decision, we know it as, the share of profit which company distributes to the shareholders. But if you do not distribute to the shareholders, that means you retain all the profit. Sorry, that means you retain all the profit. So if you retain all the profit, that would mean 100% retention of the resources profit that you generated. I am just ignoring the tax dimension here because we can talk about that as well, and it is an important aspect that a finance student must incorporate every dimension which is relevant to understand the financial part of it. So tax is a very important dimension, but right now I am ignoring so that we follow the concept that we are talking of. So this third decision, which is we say dividend decision, it is actually a mix of the two. Because if you say give it away, so if you declare some dividend, so you give it away. So you give it away, that means you retain less resources. So you have to engage in mobilization of financial resources by other methods in case your business is very, very profitable and can have the opportunity of investment in many more projects. It's like a growing business. So if it is a growing business, in fact, it needs more money, and therefore less dividend may be, a better thing to do on the part of this business entity, because you already have internal resources generated, and your need to generate more resources in the form of loans from financial institutions or banks, or in the form of tapping the market through bonds or equity, would become less to that extent. But then this also is an important decision which is to be undertaken. So these three decisions: utilization of finance, which we financial resources or finance, which we also call it as investment decision, and mobilization of finance, which we or financial resources, which we call it as financing decision. And then we talk about dividend decision. And so these are three major finance decisions. So we must distinguish in terms of terminology when we use the word finance decisions and when we use the word financing decision. Financing decision is one of the three finance decisions. The three finance decisions that I talked about is investment decision, finance decision, and investment decision, financing decision, and dividend decision. So these are the three major. Why we say major? Because these are long-term decisions. And then there are short-term decisions which are related to short-term assets. So you have various kinds of short-term assets. You have inventories, you have bills receivables, you got debtors, you got cash, you got near cash, right? So you got different types of current assets. And there are management issues involved in that, which are more concerned with working capital management decision. In fact, working capital management decision is again like, a group of many decisions. So these group of many decisions, which are working capital management decisions, so these are like short-term assets mix management decision, because you have various kinds of short-term assets like I just mentioned: bills receivables, bills receivable, debtors, cash, near cash, inventories. There are various kinds. So you need to, bring in that. And so there is an issue of managing that well. So this is how, I am even elaborating as to, what is the syllabus of your curriculum. Your syllabus revolves around these four decisions, three major decisions: investment decision, financing decision, and dividend decisions. And then there is a short-term capital market, working capital, short-term capital decisions or working capital management decisions, which we also call it as short-term asset mix decision. So uh, just to conclude for today, uh, before we have some interaction in this, because none of you are coming forward, or maybe I'm not giving an opportunity to say something on this. Uh, I like anybody who has any question at this stage, uh, something that you're not followed, you want me to repeat. Because what I intend doing is in my future classes is that I will, although there is another basic introductory topic which is there. If you look at your textbook or recommended book, I've recommended few books. I would suggest my students to procure a recommended book as well, because if you procure a recommended book, that is like a long term asset for you, because that recommended book would have all that is there in your syllabus plus many things additional and a more comprehensive dealing with the subject. And then you can procure a textbook also, although there may not be any need for procuring a textbook if you are going through my classes and also doing sufficient practice on the practical aspect. This paper is a very scoring paper, so if you are doing that, then you will not face any difficulty. So what I will be doing in my future classes is that I will straight away move on to investment decision. It is, it's a matter of choice. Although in terms of curriculum, it talks about introductory topics. So there are two introductory topics which are remaining, which is about risk return trade-off. This risk return trade-off, maybe I can say for a while today itself. And then there is a dimension of time value of money, which I will deal when I start talking of investment decisions. Because through this investment decision, it will be better graspable by all of you as to what is this idea of time value of money. And I will not deal it separately and then go on to the investment decision. But this risk return trade off, I can say something on today itself. But before that, I just want to ask if you have any questions, or you want to make some observation, or you want to say something that comes to your mind related to subject, or anything that comes to your mind and that you want to raise right now. You're welcome to do that. Yes, today the number is also better, uh, and maybe some of you are attending first time. But for the convenience of my students, what I've done is the classes that I'm engaging in, I'm also posting those recording on the YouTube channel, and I have already shared the link through a video which was about the lecture on wealth maximization. So you can use the same link, and when you go to the same link, you find you can access the other videos which will come up. I intend posting today's video as well. So you will find some of you who have missed my earlier classes, or who are even missing this class, because idea of a class is to be able to interact, to provide some practical input, and also thrash out some of the queries which come to your mind. Whatever kind of queries which come to your mind is important. So if you have question, you're welcome to raise it right now. If you have any observation, you can make it. You have any other query, that also you can raise it. Otherwise, I just want to say something more on risk return trade-off, so that in the next class, which possibly would happen now on Monday, you can begin with the core subject. If I also talk about the, yes, Ayush is saying, sir, if you can again share, just a second. We can again share the name of both recommended textbooks. It is there on the WhatsApp group. So are you deleting it? No. So you will find it is there on the WhatsApp group. Did you join the WhatsApp group later? I think you had joined it earlier itself. So you will find those books are there in the WhatsApp group. Right. I did not mention the name of the books here. I had actually written it on the WhatsApp group so that it goes to everybody. Because not everybody is attending. I'm happy that more of you are attending. But even for the convenience of others, I'm just sharing these videos on the YouTube so that you can update yourself and learn about the subject at your convenience. For whatever reason, maybe you have some difficulty in attending the class. Any other thing, any other observation, any question that is there about the risk and return? What I want to say is, I'm just making a statement and then you correct me if I'm wrong. We say higher the risk, higher is the return. Is it a correct statement? And please unmute and then say, instead of just writing it on the text window. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Higher the yes, please. Yeah, somebody was coming up.
Yes, sir, it is a correct statement.
Anybody else who has a different view? Now I am unsharing my screen so that I can see all of you who are there when you are interacting with me. Yes. Anybody else who said it is correct?
Sir, Ananya.
Ananya, right. So Ananya thinks that this statement is correct, but are there others who have different opinion? Higher the risk, higher the return. Like, in the Olympics, we have long jump, we have pole vault, we have high jump. Like we have, competitions which nowadays youth engages in, where they try to ride on a bike on a single wheel. Nowadays, there are very high powered bikes are coming, and I'm giving different examples to connect it with the subject. Or let us say, just for fun's sake, there is some competition going on among the friends as to who can jump from how many stairs up. So 1 floor, 2 floor, 3 floor. So assuming somebody takes the courage and jumps from first floor to the ground floor, and so there is a reward which a group of friends have kept. So now there is somebody else who say, well, I can go a little bit higher on the first floor itself and I can jump from there. So there is a higher reward also for that. And then somebody else takes up the courage and says, look, I am willing to jump from the second floor. So you think somebody who jumps from the second floor would have higher reward?
Sir, बचेगा ही नहीं.
So that means the statement is wrong. That means higher the risk, higher the return is not a correct statement. Ananya, Pragya, what do you think? Or anybody else?
Sir, the calculated risk should be the word.
Calculated risk. So the moment you say calculated risk, that means you have tried to do calculations and you're also taking risk. And so when you're taking risk and you're trying to do calculation, yes, Mamta, you want to add something? Yes, Mamta, you want to add something? Or anybody else who would like to modify this statement that I am making? Risk return trade-off. So I'm saying higher the risk, higher the return. Is it a correct statement? So the correct statement would be that higher the risk, higher the risk, there is a probability of a higher return. Now the question is, if it is a probabilistic scenario, see, if it is a certain scenario, then you will say, well, everybody will, instead of going second floor, would rather go to third floor and jump on the ground floor, because now you are taking more risk. So you can even say climb to Qutub Minar and jump from there. You can go to a high-rise building and climb 34 floors and jump from there. But then you know it for certain that actually the returns are in the negative. You know it for certain because returns are in negative. So we have to modify this statement of saying higher the risk, higher the return. And I am modifying it. If nobody else is taking that, I am actually wanting to give this opportunity to you people to modify this sentence, modify this statement, and that clearly reflect the perspective in which we are dealing this subject of finance. Sanidhya, Nikhil, or Ayush, or Rishika, they are all very intelligent people. And I'm not asking something to test your knowledge, but I'm asking you to at least come forward if you have an answer in mind. Idea is to be able to not only have an answer in mind, but also idea is also to have an initiative and be able to say it. By committing some mistake, you learn that, well, this was wrong. By not committing a mistake, by not coming forward, by not taking initiative, you really didn't know whether you were right or wrong. And then once I mentioned, then you realize, well, that's what I was thinking in my mind, but you have missed the opportunity of taking that initiative and taking that credit. So it is in this sense I'm saying that if you have an idea in your mind, you do come for, you must come forward. Risk and return move in tandem. Higher the risk, higher the return is the point that we are lower the risk, lower the return. This holds true for investments. Not really, because investment is anything on which there is a return. So if you place your investment in a business which is very, very new, now you are taking a very high risk. For any of these startups which are upcoming in the new business domain, you find they have, you know, both the sides. The opportunity may not materialize and business may fail, or opportunity may materialize and people may take it up. Of course, more than a century before, when this telephone was invented by Graham Bell, I think that's the name we generally hear. So the point that he was making, many people thought it's a stupid idea. It can't happen. It's something stupid that person is talking. But today we have moved from simple telephone to a mobile phone, and we find, you know, this is like it was one of the great idea, one of the greatest idea that we had. It has actually changed the society. So it is in that sense I'm saying, well, it may fail or it may succeed, and therefore we always say higher the risk, there is a probability of a higher return, and this probability may change as the acceptability comes, because business is not in vacuum. Business is in the society, and customer needs and demands and preferences are very, very important. So we will never, like, we should, at least the students of finance should never say higher the risk, higher the return. We should say higher the risk, there is a probability that return can be higher, and the entire game lies in this calculation as to whether you are taking up those risks where probability is higher, or you're taking up those risks where probability is lower. And there also, you know, there is a lower probability of higher return, but there is a probability of very, very higher return. The probability is lower, but then the return expected is very, very high. It's like in a very, very speculative domain today, like many of the startup businesses are. So that's how we should take it. And since time is also getting completed, so I'm just stopping here.